Good morning. This is the subcommittee work session on the Senate Bill 383 relative to land surveying services. We have three members of our subcommittee here, which is a quorum of the subcommittee. We're expecting at least one more who's not yet present. Representative Goley, whose wisdom we trust, is sitting in. Um, the let, if I may start, um, having looked at this bill, I saw with some problems with the new section that render it, um, have some real problems with it, maybe will render it unworkable. And the first thing that I noticed was the civil penalty is done, adjudicated by the board, which acts both as the judge and the jury. You have a hearing before the board, but uh, they're comprised of land surveyors. The um, there is no appeal to Superior Court, which is a typical language for some of these things. Mark Condomitraki said that part of his motivation was to reduce clogging of the courts. And even if this even if this is found to to and someone is convicted or whatever the word you want to use here, found by the board in violation, fined $10,000, you now have a piece of paper. You're still going to have to go to court. You may think you may have a summary judgment or something fast. Maybe. I don't know that. I want to step back because I'm actually into the bill, but I want to repeat some headlines that I've mentioned. Um, Despite my what I'm offering here is my opinion and my criticism, I want something good to come out of this. I don't know that it can happen with this, but I'll tell you the direction I think we want to go, and I'm obviously going to listen to this subcommittee and invite Representative Goley to uh, Representative Ryan is here.
Welcome.
Great, great. Okay.
Better late than never.
Okay. All right. Representative Bryan, I'm just introduced, open the session. We're starting. I started to talk about specifics of the bill before I invite the subcommittee to chime in, give their opinions. I then interrupted myself to say that I think all of us want to see something good come out of this. These people have a legitimate gripe. We want to see that addressed. But a good idea is not necessarily a good bill. And that's kind of the direction I'm going with this. Um, our- the so we talked about now the idea of this 10,000. I wondered where this came from, and we inadvertently did some research yesterday after one of the hearings and found that the Medical Society has a similar provision, 50,000.
Medicine, not the medical.
I'm bored of
Excuse me. Just
Of course,
make it
of course,
clear.
the Board of Medicine. I don't know that any of this has ever been done. That the, and I don't know that I would support that. Some of the older boards seem to have this. Don't think it's a good idea. And maybe that's why it's never been actually implemented, because if somebody's practicing medicine or practicing land surveying and is just a civilian, how does a board have the judicial authority to go after somebody walking down the street who's committed a crime? That's what the attorney general. That's what the courts are for. You licensed land surveyors are going to be looking to licensure, suspending or revoking a license. Uh, Part of what I also wanted to say is there is no there's no magic. We can improve the situation, but I don't know that there's anything we can't get perfection. We can't, you misbehaved, we're locking you up, the patrol's car's coming, you're not getting out of jail. I mean, that's just not going to happen. The, we have to go through due process, which this sort of, what was my concern about the judge and jury aspect of that. Again, other boards are doing it, but I don't support that. I'm not going to man the ramparts to undo that, but I would have never supported it and would speak against it as I am here. Um, the I mentioned that it would be nice to have whatever the solution to get something about Superior Court, but probably the more important or the most important thing in my view is the person that's been hurt is not indemnified. He's not mentioned in here. And I want to see, again, I'll wait for the subcommittee to chime in. I want to see the person who has been injured made at least whole, maybe more than whole, lawyer, legal expenses, whatever is needed to right the wrong. Now, if we can, when I said we can't make it perfect, but we can improve, I would seek legal advice. OLS maybe can provide it. Can we, with legislation, make it easier for you to pursue, to get a judgment against someone who practices without a license, expired license, whatever? Can we help as the legislature to do that for you? But I don't, so there I am. I think I would like, I don't think, I would like personally to see some indemnification of the injured party. A more realistic, you might, for something like this, we just accepted the words guilty of a Class B misdemeanor. I have no reason to, this is not driving without a license. That's a Class B, or it's a violation or something. This is a real injury, and I don't know why it shouldn't be an A. If you want to change something, that would be the first thing that I would look at. Make this an A, was the possibility of jail to. A has a criminal penalty of $2,000 and up to a year in county jail. So, which is significant because B has no, oh, that's fine. Judge can continue it. It's for that matter. Anyway, I am interested in making the situation better. I don't think we can do this in time or to rescue this particular bill, but I'm declaring, I'm almost finished, by the way, my openness to improve this. I know a rivaling representative from Dover here, and I'm done. The other thing is we have from what I've determined, we have no problem with the non-resident licensure. That should really probably go into, we were just talking a moment ago, into A69, and there's a Roman 1, and make the present Roman 1A and this Roman B of A69 Roman 1.
Yes, Mr. Chair, I would like to put it, because there is already section 310A69, which is on non-resident licenses for land surveyors. And I would just like to put this in, your wording in there under Roman 1, which is the board may, on application and payment of the fee, issue a license as a land surveyor to any person of any state, etc., provide the applicant is registered or licensed in the state where the requirements are equal to or greater than the requirements of this state. So this would simply replace that. Well, actually, it would add the option of meeting the requirements for licensure in A63 Roman 1 and 2, which are the requirements for residents. So this would just allow a non-resident to apply for license either as a licensed surveyor in another state or by meeting the requirements for licensure in New Hampshire. And I think that would meet your desire and our desire to license more people appropriately without adding another new section to our already fat law books. Yes,
That, just the word and
yes,
at the end of that, just so we know it's both. It can't just be licensed in another state, and the applicant met the terms for license.
I beg, right, that's why we would revise it to the language from Senate Bill 277, which says or, which I think is more appropriate. No.
277?
I'm taking your language from 277, which says or, and I support that. But I'd like to comment on the first section, the violations and penalties. I also disagree with making the board the prosecutor and the judge for unlicensed practice. I would suggest that instead of trying to fix that process, which is not our field of expertise, we simply say, take the Roman 3, the board may investigate actual, alleged, or suspected unlicensed activity and shall support the prosecution of such. I mean, that's what you really want. You want the Attorney General to pay attention to the surveyors, and if you present the case, you know, this person did such and such, and we have the expert witnesses to call on, that will help them to take the cases much more seriously. I also think we should recommend that the Registry of Deeds and the planning boards not accept anything that is not from a licensed surveyor, which I don't think we can tack onto this bill, but it's something that we really ought to consider for next year.
How do you feel about the amendment?
Well, Madam Chair, I was going to say on that, I think every plan that comes into the zoning board comes in with a stamp. And I think that's what the problem is. They are being stamped, but the clerks may not be looking at the particular stamp to see if they are licensed. And so, you know, it's easy to see that it's not stamped. The question is it a legitimate stamp?
Right. And my husband, who's on the planning board, said he didn't know about the town and city acceptance, but he was pretty sure the Registry of Deeds did check things like that. So that's at least one way to prevent recording an incorrect map. But I don't think that's germane to this bill, and we don't have time to add it if it's not. But it's a good idea for next year.
What do you
I
think?
agree, yes.
Study. You intend study.
Well, no, we're going to make an amendment to the thing. We will amend it. I mean, it's not interim study. There's some things we got to get through.
I really think we ought to push the non-resident licensure through because that's important, in my opinion.
There's no reason we can't put what you just said too, about the board may investigate any actual or suspected or licensed activity and recommend prosecution to the Attorney General and report the same to the Attorney General. So that's an improvement, not that, I might also vote for making, while we're doing tinkering in a good direction, change Class B to Class A.
Yeah, there can be a lot of money involved.
Yeah, should not be, this is, I can recognize from other legislation how people just put boilerplate here, but this has to be examined on its own. And so these are the improvements, but I'm still interested, if we're talking about something coming in next year, indemnification of the injured party.
Well, I think that's one reason to send it for prosecution, is that they can deal with indemnification and the,
Can they?
I don't know, I suppose so.
No, that's why I think we need some legal advice on it, because I'm really hot about that. What difference does it make when we find this guy if the guy that's got the house in the wrong place, or he's still, thanks, what about me?
But for me, the $10,000, I don't know where that come from.
Heaven.
It comes from the guilty.
Oh, where, oh, you mean in the bill or?
In the bill, in the bill.
In the bill, no, that came from heaven.
And then,
That's directly copied from the Board of Medicine statute, is my guess.
No,
Yes.
they were 50.
Oh, 50.
Land surveyors are giving them a bargain. But I don't think that any of this has ever been collected. That's is my point. It's, you can put 1 million, who cares? Representative Bryan.
Well, it's not germane to it, but it is along the same lines indirectly. When we had, like in the city, somebody pulling a false alarm when I was on the fire department, they had to come up with a fine. And they determined what would be the block of time that it took, and they came up with that dollar amount. Now, whether that person ever was charged with that, because most were juveniles or something like that, but maybe they didn't pay the full amount, but it gave the court the authority to enforce that. So my question also would be the $10,000. Is that up to $10,000? Could the court look at it and say that, we'll levy $2,000 versus the 10?
The,
It says not to exceed.
Not to exceed.
So it's the high end, not to exceed. So it puts the cap. So somebody may only get $1,000 fine out of this.
all that's fine, but what we needs to be fine tuned is you can't. I'm just not in favor. I don't care if it's $1 of the board being both the prosecutor and the jury determining what it should be. There's got to be some. I don't know quite how to do it, but
Right, and that's why I concur with on your line 21, section Roman numeral 3, and to support the Attorney General. He needs to be the prosecutor of this.
I have nothing against the fines.
Yeah.
I
Well-
think that's reasonable. It's just that who's doing it? It can't be the board by itself.
No,
they
I
gotta have
agree.
somebody else.
Well, I'm hoping that the courts would step in on this
Well,
now.
that's why
Right.
we don't want to go forward with this right
No, we're
now.
talking the same language. I agree, Representative, yes.
Did you have anything, John?
Yes, I would like to know again how someone can recognize a company who doesn't have a license.
Well, that's a felony if it's a company doing it.
But no, how we can recognize?
How?
Yes.
The person who has the stamp will. No, the stamp only does the individual. That would just be a matter of investigation. Is he a freelancer working for himself, or is he part of a company? And that would be well known in town. Because I don't think how do you find a surveyor? You either call a company or you find somebody that your Uncle Harry recommended. And I don't think that's a practical problem.
You think so?
That you would know whether it's an individual or whether they're working for a company. That would not be hard to determine. But in any case, you've got the individual on the hook.
Definitely, yes.
And if we could get more, terrific. Because if it's a company, it's a felony. Not what's called not a natural person. Representative Goley, do you have any thoughts?
One quick question. To go along with this, we also were given paperwork with an amendment, I believe. Are we going to discuss that? Does everyone have that?
I don't have that. What did the amendment say?
It was a recommended amendment by Senator to Senator? Is that?
All right, well, I'll be glad to look at that if it,
All right, I just want to make sure we are aware of this, if they need this change as well. I have it.
well, yeah,
Okay.
it's some suggested language from some senator on the reciprocity. Oh, okay, this is a different way of doing it.
It's right here. Doing that even longer.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. That's exactly what I was saying.
Oh, okay, well,
Yeah, that's works too. That's essentially what I was saying, except that, the RSA 310A63 Roman 1 and 2 do not specify the New Hampshire specific legal examination, which I think is what you want to have them do. At least not as I remember reading it. Oh, the proctored
proctored
examination?
prescribed by the board.
Okay. All right, and that is but are you going to insist on the whole of that, of Roman 1 and 2, which is even though they already have a license?
My name is Bill Doucette from Board of Health and Human Services. So there are national requirements for licensure, which there are national requirements for licensure that all the applicants have to pass, and then there are local requirements or state requirements. So when we say your state has similar requirements and you're licensed in that state, you're welcome to come here and take our exam to prove that you know what the boundary laws in New Hampshire are. And then if you're successful, then we issue a license. We need that step, because you may work in a public land state. You may work in Colorado where they don't have from the oak tree along the stone wall to the shore. They have all rectangular, and that person would not be, his experience would not be applicable to New Hampshire. So we do need the exam.
I agree, we would need the exam. All right, not as obvious to the naive reader that the proctored examination is in two parts, the national type exam and the state-specific exam.
So that's already in the law, unless right?
I
One-
think you're looking on page 2 there. I think the part that's better is this one.
Oh, okay, all right.
Which is essentially what I said, okay. Yeah, that's a nice way of doing it, and they amend the correct section of law. So I'm good with that.
So we don't need this, we don't need the language, or the language in the bill. We will replace it with the amended, the suggested.
With this different
amendment.
language, yes, I
Yeah.
think that meets what the intent of what I was trying to say. So I think it's,
Okay.
although I think you've got your indents incorrect, but that's something OLS can fix. I'm not worried about that. I'd like to recommend that we delete lines 11 to 20 because we don't support them and we don't have the time to fix them appropriately. But I'd like to get some agreement on line 21, where the board may investigate. We should have an and. What would do we want to say they report that to the Attorney General for prosecution?
Report their findings
Report their findings,
to the
okay?
Attorney General. Well, when I go to LOS, that's what
Okay,
I want to get the gist of what we want. So you said delete that. That's kind of what I had been leading up to all along, with suggestion that we ask them to, having heard us, come back with something maybe next year, along with, I'm beating the drum for indemnification. I want to see that somewhere.
and also where it would be most appropriate to put into the recording process, a check.
Madam Chair,
Yeah.
which line you just said before? Which line?
Delete, lines 11 to 20, which is paragraph 2,
11,
and
20.
add to paragraph 3, the
Mhm.
report the findings to the Attorney General.
Okay.
'Cause I think that will help a lot in the prosecution
Mhm.
without
Okay.
creating them as judge and jury.
We're not judiciary, but would like to also change B to A.
I'm okay with that.
Okay.
You could have some very serious,
That makes
uh,
sense.
Judge can always they can always plead it down, but
Right.
can't go up if
That
it's not
makes
in the law.
sense.
okay,
Mhm.
all right.
So, what you're talking about Pearson's amendment, Pearson's thought about the stamps have to be, you said somewhere along in the process. I want to give.
We don't
that a
want to
bit-
do that, but that would be non-germane. It's a different section of law, but it would certainly be appropriate at the Registry of Deeds, if not the local level, to
What-
verify that the stamp is from a licensed surveyor.
What I'm
I mean,
suggesting.
it may not solve all the problems, but it'll stop the biggest cases where something gets recorded incorrectly.
Mhm.
Again, Bill Doucette from the Board of Licensure. There already is a statute on the books that to record a plan, it shall be stamped by a licensed land surveyor. So for the registries, that's taken care of.
Okay, well, thank you very much. That solves one problem.
That sounds good.
Okay. What I wanted what I was talking about with that issue, which Bill Doucette has already handled, is to indicate a direction we'd like to see for
Future
How-
legislation.
future legislation, thank you, such that getting rid of the judge and jury aspect, okay, appeal to Superior Court, indemnification, they're the things I'm looking for. Okay, and again, I want to repeat what I said at the beginning. We want this to work. We want something to happen, but it's got to be a good bill.
Mhm. I agree.
Subcommittee, how do you feel about that? Because we would like to make a motion to summarizing the things we've talked about. Class A,
Okay, I'll summarize what I think you said. First change on line 9, Class B to Class A misdemeanor.
Mhm.
2, delete lines 11 to
11,
20,
20.
Mhm.
which we don't think is correct. On line 21, which is Roman 3, add to the end of the investigation that they'll report the findings to the Attorney General for prosecution.
Mhm.
And 4, take the revised language, makes section 2 amend RSA 310A69, rather than adding a new section.
But we are agree with the $10,000.
We are deleting the section that
deleting the
mentions the
section
10,000.
$10,000.
that's
Okay.
going to
The 11 to 20. Okay, I got
get reelected, so you'll see it next year.
you. I will try.
Yeah. Oh, delete that, or delete Roman 3 there?
In the bill?
Yeah, oh, just the deletion? All right, we'll add that to a
Oh, yeah, all right.
delete,
All right, that's not in the bill,
no, but it's,
It's in-
it's clearly germane.
clearly, Germain, yeah.
Okay, A's 63, Roman 3. Yes, because you're covering it under non-resident licenses.
But Madam Chair,
Yes.
we're not supposed, I think we're supposed to put a number for the penalty.
I'm sorry?
We're supposed to put a number
The whole thing is out
for the penalty.
for now.
No, oh,
When they come back, we're going to talk about
What,
oh, okay.
the whole of this paragraph?
Mhm.
I think we
No,
don't have
if-
the time to do it properly, so if you just take it out.
Oh, okay.
Because
for now.
it's not something we're experts on, and we don't have the time to investigate it thoroughly.
Mhm.
So let's deal with the specific issues that we can. and-
Eliminate that section here.
Yeah, John, they're in a lot better shape walking out the door than when they walked in the door.
Exactly.
All right, so the idea would be that we would create an amendment that does those 5 things.
Mhm.
Goodness. And are we in support?
Is that all right with you, Representative Bryan?
O'Brien's good.
We knew that.
We know you're good.
Always.
Okay.
Okay, so, would you like to move that?
Right, well, we don't have a number, but yes, we should
Move the 5
move
things
those 5 things, yes,
as the clerk has recorded.
right.
Okay, Representative Bryan, would you like to second?
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, so 4-0. And goalie would have made it 5-0. If you don't mind sticking around, I'd like to make sure you want me to go over to OLS, or do you want to do it?
I don't care.
Well, whoever it is, we should, assuming it is I want to make sure I have it
Okay.
exactly right, so.
All right.
Unless you're,
No, I'm fine.
all right,
I've got another hour.
pardon me?
I have a lunch break. I've got a bit of time. So,
Well, if
yeah.
you have a bit of time.
Yeah, please. That's why I think we'll go.
Okay, all right, fine. Look, I'm not trying to stick you with anything. That's like my point.
I'm agreeable. I can do
Okay.
it. It's not a problem.
All right, well, then,
Yeah.
You've listed the things. There's nothing further I can.
Okay.
Okay, but I should write up, subcommittee, do you mind if I sign?
Not at all.
Oh, wait a minute, it says clerk, you can sign it.
All right.
You can see how easy being clerk is.
Sign here and here.
I still owe you